Well, new place, but I gotta keep going. The reviews must go on, as one man put it, but I'll be taking it easy this time around. Nothing big like Twilight Zone or a long anime project that I still have in the backlog, but just a good old-fashioned cartoon from many years ago. That one being Green Lantern the Animated Series. Yep, almost forgot about these, didn't ya? Last time, we saw Green Lantern taking on a plotline involving royal betrayals and Hal continuing his efforts to recruit more Green Lanterns for the coming threat of the so-called Red Lanterns. And while that episode was a direct retelling of a comic, this episode coming up is a loose adaptation instead of a book written by Alan Moore. So, that's interesting, I guess. But, without further ado, let's look at Lost Planet. It begins with Kilowog taking his duties rather seriously, despite their situation not really needing it, and Aya sharing that another ring has been located, though the planet it's currently on is about to collide with a giant asteroid. Hal tries to slow it down, but is only able to buy them a few more hours, as well as drain their batteries, because he spent all their power trying to delay said asteroid. After a minor amount of walking, the four of them, Hal, Kilowog, Aya, and Razor, come across a group of aliens whose leader is Clancy Brown, and is apparently a veteran of some kind. Due to the time crunch, the 7 of them search the rest of the planet in pairs, with Hal being stuck with the big quiet guy, who then attempts to throw Hal off a short cliff onto ground that tries to eat him. I wasn't expecting space horror just yet, but it's certainly not unwelcome. However, the ground doesn't fully eat him, and spares him strangely enough. I'm sure that's not important. As for Kilowog's pairing with Clancy Brown, he gushes over him a little because of how famous the battle is, though if you pay attention, you could see Kilowog is already getting at least a tiny bit suspicious here. Aya's travel partner takes a different approach, however, by speaking highly of Aya, before then spraining her ankle and requesting her to be taken to their ship, instead of Aya offering to make a field-made splint with, just like some sticks and twigs. And given Hal was almost killed by their third, she probably has some sort of underhanded reason for wanting to be on their ship. Once Hal gets back up the rather small cliff, he finds his attacker has been turned to stone, which is what he probably would have ended up as had the ground not given up its attack. So clearly something is off. Granted, Hal was safe, but the guy not too far behind him was quickly petrified, not even that far from the cliff. It's like 10 feet over there. And even though I said Kilowog seemed to be sensing something was off, I get to be proven wrong moments later, as Kilowog is completely buying this man's story of the famous battle, going as far as to say that he hopes Clancy Brown is the lantern they're searching for. Over with Aya. Okay, please, can we stick with one of them for longer than a couple minutes or two? I'm begging you. She gets hacked. What? The girl who was with the guy who tried to kill Hal Jordan was secretly evil? I never would have saw that coming. With that settled, we can finally neatly move on to Razor's part, as the last moment we saw him was a very quick scene that probably could have just been put before this moment instead, and still would have flowed better. Anyways, he comes across a graveyard of ships and an alien named Saint Walker, who very simply explains the situation to Razor, yet somehow he still manages to upset him. I'm going to gloss over another strange incident with Hal, but we'll circle back to it later, as the next cutaway is to Kilowog, who learns that Clancy Brown was actually the bad guy in the famous war his weapon is from. So good. We have all of our villains revealed, and only 8.5 minutes remaining. While Kilowog and Clancy Brown have a rough hand-to-hand fight, Razor is fighting against Saint Walker, who is casually dodging or deflecting all of his attacks while staying completely calm. But after hitting a pressure point on Razor to keep him still, Saint Walker reveals he knows much more about what is going on in the galaxy, and gives Razor the Green Lantern ring. That he just had, I guess. Hal finds him soon after, and Kilowog gets a lucky save from a convenient geyser, staggering Clancy Brown, but it doesn't matter, as he is then saved by his female compatriot on the hacked ship. We get a neat little chase scene around this valley, but more convenient geological processes occur to knock down the ship and safely catch it, so the team doesn't end up stranded here too. With the pair captured, they can safely leave, right? Right? Wrong. because the mission isn't finished yet. They still need to find their Green Lantern after all, and Hal suddenly gets a moment of clarity when trying to throw the ring in hopes of it returning to Oa. As it turns out, the Green Lantern they were looking for was the planet itself, known as Mogo. And that's essentially the episode. Another successful, but also unsuccessful recruitment as a new Green Lantern joins the fight, but can't really travel with the crew, due to it being a planet. So, first off, the clues that Mogo was the Green Lantern. When I first saw this as a teen, I didn't think a planet Green Lantern was possible, so I think I was very shocked for the final scene, but rewatching it, it is pretty obvious it is the only logical answer. For starters, the planet is very much alive. The ground Hal is thrown into initially tries to consume him, which could point to a strange variant of quicksand at first, but it then stops and reverses once it reaches his ring. You might think that maybe the ring did something, but then we see his attacker had been turned to stone instead, while being in an area away from the strange ground. Then we have stuff like the geyser erupting to save Kilowog, the trees being moved to create a path for Hal to find Razor, and then the planet doing so much more to stop the remaining antagonists, but doing so with care in order to not ruin the ship. So yeah, by the end of the episode, it does all have a logic to it. Aside from the chase scene with the 3 lanterns just flying across the gorge, it doesn't look bad either. Mogo itself has a rather cool design as a planet, including the graveyard of ships that is later revealed to be here because of Mogo wanting to keep criminals on itself for the betterment of the universe. The antagonist crew, save for the girl, have cool alien designs that I'd say is on par with classic Star Wars. Also, I must highlight Hal Jordan using his ring to play Pong, and the ball actually lighting up when it makes contact was great and really shows they have mastered a simplified construct design that still holds up to today. And the last thing regarding this episode is the antagonists, or really just Clancy Brown. He's a former general who lost a famous battle, but with the caveat that all his men were extremely loyal to the end. This was made to act as a foil to Kilowog, because in the beginning of the episode, he was wanting Hal to follow the rules and regulations the Lanterns should all follow, instead of Hal's reckless actions that somehow put them in as much danger as it does lead to good. It is to show a darker side of what total loyalty and following orders can lead to if routinely enforced. Sometimes following orders isn't the right choice, and that's why Kilowog stays near the end of the episode, despite Hal ordering him and the others to get in the ship and leave, despite the asteroid on an imminent collision course with Mogo. Although it really didn't matter if he stayed or not, given they could have just flown away to safety anyways, it was still nice for Kilowog to show that even he may stray from following orders if it means having a deeper and more meaningful bond with his fellow Lantern. If the focus wasn't constantly switching between the 7 characters, maybe they could have worked on their focus for the episode a bit better. Razor's initial scene could have easily been moved ahead in the episode to pair with the second scene, and nothing would be lost. Aya's was alright, but might have been better if it maybe came before the attempt on Hal's life, since it is the most minor of the action, and then Hal's would be the escalation, with Kilowog's still being the end of all the breaks and tying everything back together. Plot-wise, though, it's an alright episode. I probably wouldn't rewatch it for this episode alone, rather for the overall plot importance, as another Lantern has been recruited in the war effort against the Red Lanterns, and also setting up Saint Walker as a character. Because of that, this episode gets a 5 out of 10. It's a puzzle piece of a larger story, and not enough to bring me back on its own. Hope you all enjoyed this little review. I'm Wolf, and it's nice to be back. Hey, you done here yet? We got some shows lined up to watch. I'm coming.